Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of the Visa Hour. Ako si Kevin, katabi sa akin si Summer. Consular officers kami at ngayon gusto ko isulat ang mga tweets tungkol sa non-immigrant visas.
Right. Today we're focusing on non-immigrant visas, which are for people who want to travel to the United States temporarily. This includes people who want to be tourists, students, or work in the United States for a short period.
And the United States is a large country. I myself, I live in California, Northern California, and there are many opportunities for people who wish to travel on non-immigrant visas in California. You could study at some of our wonderful schools in the area. You could go to Alcatraz, Golden Gate Bridge, see the redwood trees. There's many different things you can do in California. I love it. I've taken advantage of it, and hopefully one day many of you out there can come and visit California as well.
Right, and I am from a different part of the United States. A lot of people go to California as a great tourist destination, but I am also from the middle of the United States, which also has interesting things to see and do. I'm from the great state of Kansas. There is a tradition of cowboys and rodeos and farmers out in that area of the world that is also interesting to see. So hope you come out there too. And we'd like to encourage anyone watching to send us your questions about traveling to the United States, and we will answer them live here.
To send a question, please post your question on Twitter using the hashtag the Visa Hour, or post it on the U.S. Embassy Facebook page.
And speaking of Twitter and Facebook, make sure you follow the U.S. Embassy Twitter account at www.twitter.com/US Embassy Manila. And we also have a Facebook page at www.facebook.com/manila.US Embassy.
Before we start with questions, we want to make sure you know about the other resources for learning about U.S. visas. Please check out the Visa Wall on our Facebook page, where you can find lots of useful information about all kinds of visas.
Right, and we also have a blog. This is a pretty new initiative that we've started here at the Embassy, and it's part of our strategy to get as much information out about visas and blogs as possible.
And it's also something people at the Embassy ourselves, we read the blog as well, so it's a great resource for people out there.
Right. It's called The Satisfied Voyager. We answer, on the blog, we answer immigrant questions and non-immigrant questions. So if anyone wants to check that out, it is blogs.usembassy.gov/Philippines.
Questions from Twitter and Facebook. Okay. Question number one.
Wonderful. And I apologize in advance if I do not pronounce anyone's name correctly. This looks like it's from Jonathan Venerio. I want my son to visit my United States citizen's wife. What visa do I need?
Well, I think before we address the question, Jonathan wants their child to go visit his U.S. citizen wife. I think the first thing we have to do is establish if the child's a U.S. citizen. We can't issue a visa to a U.S. citizen child, so the first thing I would recommend is check to see if your U.S. citizen wife transmits U.S. citizenship to your child. If they don't, they are eligible for a non-immigrant visa.
Great. And in general, the way to apply for a non-immigrant visa, everyone who's interested in a non-immigrant visa needs to go through the same process. You have to apply online, and the best resource to get to the online application is manila.usembassy.gov.
So once we've established that the child is not a U.S. citizen, we understand how to apply for the visa. The correct visa type for somebody wanting to temporarily visit somebody in the United States is a B1, B2 visa for business or tourist travel.
Great. And the child, even if it's a child, they would have to come in for an interview with a consular officer.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so next we have a question from Andrea. If we're married for 3 years and we do not include our 2-year-old son in our tourist application, can this be a factor for denial? We recommend everybody is honest for their reason for travel in their visa applications. And if you're not taking your 2-year-old child with you, and there's a reason why, just explain it during the interview. I think all consular officers who conduct the interviews appreciate honest answers to all their questions, and people being very honest for their reason for travel. Being able to build a relationship when you're interviewing is key to being able to make an accurate adjudication. So please be honest. Please just explain why you want to travel to the United States. I mean, nobody is going to, if there's a good reason why you're leaving your child behind, it will not be the singular factor why a refusal would be issued.
Right. And Andrea, if you accidentally left the child off the off of the application when you were applying, you can just explain at the window, you know, it was an accident, you went, but like Kevin's saying, just be honest about it, and it shouldn't, in and of itself, it is not a reason to be denied a tourist visa.
When we're talking about visas and we're talking individual aspects of an application, whether it's a child on the application or something else, I think it's important very early to clarify that there is no checklist that the consular officers are looking for. There aren't boxes that applicants check and suddenly magically you're issued a visa. What the consular officer is doing is assessing your application as a whole, and no one single factor will be the reason for your denial. So the officer is trained to look at the situation as a whole, on a case-by-case basis as well. So just because you know somebody who was issued with similar circumstances, that's not a guarantee that you will be also. And in the same regard, somebody who had similar circumstances who was denied, that's not a guarantee you will be either. The consular officers look at everything on a case-by-case basis, and they look at every application in their entirety.
Right. Looks like we have another question coming in from Angel. Angel wants to know if she can exchange an expired green card for a tourist visa.
Well, there's no direct exchange process. There's no like-for-like exchange. You can't walk in one day, hand over your green card, your legal permanent residency card, and walk out with a tourist visa. However, if you no longer wish to live in the United States and you wish to travel to the United States as a tourist, there is a process you can go through. You can relinquish your legal permanent residency card. For that, you would have to contact the Department of Homeland Security. And then once you've done that, you now become eligible for a tourist visa.
Mm-hmm. And then you go through the same process that anyone else applying for a tourist visa would go through. You have to make the application online, and you have to come in for an interview with a consular officer. Actually, there's a new program that Manila has implemented called the Visa Reissuance Program. And this might be a good time to talk about that too. Because the Consul General here really wants to make sure that people are traveling to the United States and getting as efficient service as possible. There is a Visa Reissuance Program, and it's for people who have had B1, B2 tourist visas in the past. And there's 9 criteria for qualifying for the Visa Reissuance Program. Those that qualify don't actually have to come back in for an interview in front of a consular officer. I'm going to refer people to the manila.usembassy.gov website as the authority on the 9 criteria. But the overview is that you have to have a valid B1, B2 visa that was issued within the last 10 years and has a 10-year validity and has not expired within the last year.
Absolutely, it's a great new program available here at the embassy. Though please let me state that every day we do turn people away for the VRP, the Visa Reissuance Program, because they haven't read the criteria correctly. So please, if you believe you're eligible, go online, check out the criteria, and please take advantage of this new program.
Great. Okay, it looks like Nancy has a question. Nancy wants to know, how much is the application for a visa and the visa fee, and she wants to know, where do I pay for the application? Nancy, actually the visa fee has recently increased. There are different fees for the different non-immigrant visa categories. The current fee for the B1, B2 is 160 US dollars. That is also payable in the peso equivalent. And the place you pay for it through any BPI. And again, to get the list of BPI locations, you can go to our website, manila.usembassy.gov.
You'll hear us talk a lot today about our website. It's a great resource for anybody out there. Something like this Visa Hour is also a great resource. But what we're talking about today is complementing the information on the website. So I recommend that you all go to the website, check out the information, check out the Facebook page, and also take advantage of resources and check out the Visa Hour and future editions.
Yeah. Okay, looks like Gemma has a question. Can someone applying for a CR1 visa also apply for a B1 visa? And what are the chances of approval?
The answer is you can apply for both. One of the criteria for a B1 visa is that you do not have a residence that you intend to abandon. So that you do not have a residence that you intend to abandon. It could be difficult for somebody who has expressly shown their desire to go live in the United States through applying for a CR1 visa. But you're not ineligible. And there are cases where somebody could qualify for a CR1 and a B1, depending on their individual circumstances. So it's certainly possible to apply. I can't tell you what the chances are because everything, again, is on a case-by-case basis.
Right. And just to clarify there, if anyone doesn't know what a CR1 visa is, that is someone who is married to an American citizen for less than 2 years. And that's an immigrant visa. So it kind of begs the question of, if you have an immigrant visa pending in any category, can you still apply for a tourist visa? As Kevin was saying, yes, you can still apply for a tourist visa. But again, what the consular officer is looking at is a totality of the circumstances. And to be issued a B1, B2 visa, the consular officer needs to be convinced that the person intends to come back to, in our case, the Philippines, and stay here in the Philippines. So
I think there are many myths and misunderstandings about the non-immigrant visa process. But one thing we should probably clarify is, legally, the burden is upon the applicant to prove they're qualified. So the applicant has to be able to overcome what we would call the presumption of immigrant intent. The burden is upon the applicant to show that they'll return. So having a CR1 application is something the applicant would have to be able to adequately explain before they could qualify for the visa.
Right. Okay. Carmela has written in. Carmela wants to know, is the national identification number being asked in the DS-160 form the same as the tax identification number? Carmela is filling out her DS-160 at the same time she's listening. No, I'm just kidding. But, what do you think, Kim?
I don't know.
I think the DS-160 is asking for if there's any sort of national ID number. In the United States, we have Social Security numbers.
We do, yeah.
So if there's one number that you use for tax identification purposes, that follows you through life, it's the same number and it's only assigned to you.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
You can include it.
Okay.
And we have a question here from Ava. Can my father, visiting us in Singapore, carrying a tourist visa, file his US visa here instead of Manila? It's a great question because there are many Filipinos living and working throughout the world. There There are a number of countries that have large Filipino populations, and people want to know, while they're outside of the Philippines, can they file their tourist visa application at a different location? The answer is yes. You mean yes, you can. There's nothing stopping you. Of course, the consular officer wants to be able to establish your links to a country outside of the United States. So it's possible the consular officer may feel more comfortable if you're applying in your place of residence, but there is no bar to you applying in a different country or even qualifying while applying in a different country.
Mm-hmm. Right, and the reverse of that is true as well. If there are people who are not Philippine citizens living here in the Philippines who want to apply for a tourist visa to the United States, they can apply here in Manila as well. Okay, Matt has a question. He says that he has been denied a visa 3 times. He believes he has enough ties, and he wants to know if there's any other way to be considered for a tourist visa.
Well, I think this goes back to what we were saying about the that the burden of proof is on the applicant. And all I can say to Matt is, if you believe you're qualified, Matt, you're welcome to reapply for the visa, and try and put your best foot forward in the interview if you haven't already. It's something that if you can present your case in the best possible way, that would be what I would recommend. I mean, the burden is on you to show you're qualified.
And sometimes people ask, is there a way to appeal the decision of a consular officer at the interview? And basically, the answer is no. The decision of the consular officer looking at the application and talking to the person at the interview, the consular officer makes a decision on if that person is qualified or not. And there's no formal appeal process. As Kevin was saying, basically if you feel that your situation has significantly changed and that you want to reapply again, you can reapply. But there's no way to appeal it.
And I have had somebody ask me if after a certain number of refusals, are they on a permanent blacklist? And the answer is certainly not. You can apply for a visa as many times as you wish, and there are people who have had numerous refusals, who, as Summer said, their circumstances change, who are now qualified for the visa. So just because you're refused a certain number of times, you're not blacklisted. But we do recommend that that you do wait until your circumstances change. So we have one more question just coming in now, and the question is, do I need to speak English at my NIV interview? NIV meaning non-immigrant visa. And the answer again is you do not. We have a large number of interpreters available for a variety of languages. I think we cover virtually every Philippine language, but we also have a wide variety of different languages. Summer, you speak...
Ruski Yazik,
yes.
Russian.
And we cover languages including Arabic, Spanish. I think we were counting, and we cover more than 20 languages available to interpret at the non-immigrant visa window. So if you feel like you're under pressure or you feel nervous about speaking English, you're welcome, as you approach the window, to request an interpreter for your interview. Okay, and so the next question coming in is, my husband is an American living outside the United States, but not in the Philippines. Will apply for my CR1 visa while living there.
Oh. Well, I guess the question is, can I apply for my CR1 visa while living there? Is that right?
I guess,
okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. The short answer is yes. The State Department has an extensive network of embassies and consulates all over the world, and it's a global world out there, so we know that people of one nationality are not necessarily just living in that one country anymore. So yes, we accept applications from around the world.
As Summer was saying, we're fully aware, both as individuals and as a State Department, that we're living in a very dynamic 21st century environment. People move around. Even ourselves, we're living here in the Philippines. People move around from country to country, following family or jobs or opportunities or whatever reason. So we are aware that people move around from country to country, and the option is there to apply in a different country or in a different environment. So, yeah.
Okay. Another question. I'm from Digo City, and I would like to apply for a tourist visa. Where can I get an application? Well, the authority on getting an application, there's actually step-by-step instructions on how to fill out the application, is manila.usembassy.gov. So I would direct anyone there to get the link to the application. And the application is actually a pretty easy process. There's a place where they allow you to do a test photo, because we do require photos for the visa as well. There's an app on there where they allow you to scan the photo in and test it beforehand, so you don't submit a photo that is faulty. So.
Yeah, we are aware that it can be the process can be quite daunting for people. There's online application forms you have to go through, and all the way leading up to the final interview at the window with the consular officer. I'd like to reassure everybody watching, we are aware that it can be intimidating or daunting for people, and we do try and make it as simple as possible. As Summer said, the process online is step by step by step. And we do have resources available. If you do have questions, you can contact us again through Facebook, through Twitter, or through a number of the email addresses we'll be giving out later.
Okay, it looks like we have another question coming in. Hi, can a U.S. citizen spouse apply for a tourist visa and not a spouse visa? A U.S. citizen spouse? Anyway, if the person's a U.S. citizen, they don't need a tourist visa. And that goes to Kevin's point earlier, that if a child has derived U.S. citizenship from a parent, they cannot get a tourist visa. They have to get a U.S. passport. If someone has a U.S. passport, they don't need the tourist visa. They can just go to the U.S. whenever they'd like. Yeah. If the question is, can a spouse of a U.S. citizen apply for a tourist visa, the answer is yes, someone can apply for a tourist visa. The implied question there is someone going to be qualified for a tourist visa? Yes. And again, as Kevin is saying, it depends on the person's circumstance. A consular officer has the interview and uses the information available to try to make a determination if the person, on the person's ties outside of the United States are strong enough to bring them back after a short visit to the United States. So sometimes spouses, if the U.S. citizen is actually living in the United States, sometimes spouses will find it especially difficult to prove that they are coming back to the Philippines. But
as we were saying earlier, we are very well aware that people travel and live in different countries. People are a lot more mobile internationally and globally than what they used to do. They used to be. So we are aware there's a large number of Americans living here in the Philippines who will reside here permanently. They have no desire to go back to the United States, and a tourist visa may be the best way for their spouse to go over there. We're also aware, though, that we have to consider the fact that a tourist visa for the spouse of an American citizen may also be seen as a quickie immigrant visa and a way to get in and stay in the United States. So this is why the interview is so important. We have interview-based adjudications. So the interview is important, and we are aware that every single person who walks to our window is a different case, an individual case. We don't profile people. We don't say this type of person can't get a visa. Everybody is adjudicated on their own merits.
Great. It looks like Matt had a follow-up question. You said it's better to answer the question asked. Can I present other factors in the interview even if not asked?
Well, often it's been said that people are sometimes too passive in their interviews. The burden is on you to prove your ineligibility. If you believe that you have something, you can present it. Don't be upset if the officer doesn't accept it, but if you believe it will help your case, you can present anything you wish. So I would hate for you to walk away from the interview and say, you know what, the officer didn't ask me for that one piece of information that would have qualified me. My advice to you would be, if you believe you have a piece of information at the interview that qualifies you, make that information available to the officer at the time.
And Matt's situation, I think Matt is the one who was denied 3 times.
Yes.
That might be one of the questions that's asked, because again, we say people can interview, and if you're denied, you can interview again. But there's usually the caveat of if things have significantly changed for you. So the officer might ask you, what has changed?
When we're talking about evidence as well, or things to back up your application, one thing we're all asked very frequently is, they did not look at my supporting documents. I would have been issued if they'd have looked at my supporting documents. As I said previously, we have interview-based adjudications. The supporting documents are there only if needed. We do not do paper-based adjudications. You should have it available if the officer asks for it. You should have it available if you really want to show it to the officer. But there's no guarantee that your supporting documents will be looked at, because they may not be material to the adjudication.
Great. Looks like Ivy has written in. She says, my husband is in the military and he's stationed outside the U.S. but will soon move back to the U.S. Is there a way to make the CR1 visa faster?
Well, today, Ivy, we're talking about non-immigrant visas, but you can direct your question. We do have a immigrant visa email that you can direct your question to, and hopefully they can help you with that. The email address is ivmanilareplies@state.gov. So again, anybody who has immigrant visa questions, please direct your questions to ivmanilareplies@state.gov.
Okay, this is a follow-up question to some of the supporting documents that you were talking about, Kevin. Is there a minimum balance requirement that I must have or that I should show in my bank account that will assure my visa will be granted?
Well, nothing will assure your visa's granted. Nothing will assure your visa's denied. As we said, everything is on a case-by-case basis, and there isn't a magic figure that consular officers are looking for. There isn't a magic figure that, if it appears in your bank account, will make you eligible or qualified for the visa. So our advice to all the applicants is be honest, be open, and try and have a good rapport with the officer. Have a back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, and before, in certain circumstances, I've been asked about show money. Is it important to have show money?
Yeah, absolutely.
In an account? And again, there's not a minimum balance, and honesty is the best way to go.
And you can watch this. You can watch this video later on YouTube at www.youtube.com/US Embassy Manila.
Okay, and if you want to have knowledge on what the U.S. Embassy is doing here in Manila, make sure that you like us on Facebook, facebook.com/manila.usembassy.
We like Facebook friends, so yeah, please, all of you, like us on Facebook, yes, and follow us on Twitter at www.twitter.com/US Embassy Manila.
Oh, and again, I love the blog.
You do love the blog.
I think everyone should look at the blog. It's called The Satisfied Voyager, and it's at blogs.usembassy.gov/Philippines.
And there really are some nuggets of information in the blog. It's a wonderful resource. So again, I recommend reading the blog also. So,
Great.
Another question has come in. How long does it take for a visa to be released after submission of additional documents. I sent the documents on May 16th. You'll hear this being said a lot during today. Everything is on a case-by-case basis. There's no guarantee that the additional documents you provided are exactly what the consular office is looking for. Everything's on a case-by-case basis, and apart from that, Summer, I don't have anything to add. Is there anything you could add to that question?
Right, and I echo what you're saying there. It depends on the case. It depends on what the documents were that were asked for. But if it's a non-immigrant visa and they're asking for more documents, if the documents meet the requirements, sometimes it takes a couple days for the documents to actually get back to the consular officer, even if they're submitted. And so once the officer has a chance to review the documents, if the officer believes that the documents meet the requirements and the visa is approved, we generally give a timeline of about 7 to 10 days before the visa is in the hands of the applicant.
We recognize that every applicant is an individual. And with every applicant being an individual and treated as such, it makes every case unique.
Somebody wants to know why this gentleman has an accent and where is he from?
I grew up in the United Kingdom. I was born in the United Kingdom. I moved over to the United States. Like many people here in the Philippines, I became an immigrant to the United States. I come from Northern California, where there's a large immigrant Filipino population. I know many. Before I even came to the Philippines, I knew many, many, many Filipinos. In the upcoming weeks, I'm doing a Kwentahan Tayo program, which is a Tagalog language series the embassy is putting forward. And it's me talking in Tagalog about my immigrant experiences in the United States. So in addition to checking this out on Facebook, in addition to checking this out on YouTube, be sure to
vary depending on a lot of factors, but the best place to ask about a pending CR1 application is through the USCIS, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, in the area where you are applying. So in this instance, she said that her husband's in New Jersey. Probably best to ask USCIS in New Jersey or nearby there where he's filing the application.
Here in the Philippines, we have a very educated and knowledgeable applicant pool. So I'm sure most people know the differences between IVs and NIVs. But just in case people aren't 100% sure, a non-immigrant visa is for a temporary stay in the United States, whether that being a short-term work contract, tourism, or education in the United States. The CR1 visa we're talking about in the previous questions is a visa for somebody to go live permanently in the United States with their spouse. So,
okay, somebody is asking, again, what type of supporting document should I bring to my interview? Okay.
I would recommend that you bring whatever documents you think strengthen your case to establish your qualifications for the visa. Again, do not be upset or disappointed if those documents are not looked at. I recommend you be as prepared as possible. You bring everything that you possibly can to strengthen your case. Some of it won't be used, but just so you never have that what if moment, if the officer asks for a document that you don't have, try and be as prepared as possible.
And this might be a good time to talk about too. Sometimes we've heard rumors that that applicants think that there are some myths going on out there about what it takes to be approved, and we've heard the myth of if I apply at a certain time of the day, I'm more likely to be approved.
Certain time of the year.
Right.
Or we have a quota of visas we have to. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the myth that there's X number of visas that the officers are willing to give out in a day, but that is not true. Nope. Every person that comes up to the window, as Kevin is making that point, is seen as an individual and has the same shot at getting a visa as the next person or the person before them.
As we said earlier, we have interview-based adjudications, which means the interaction that you have with the officer is very important. It is very possible and frequent for people to be issued visas with no supporting documentation. Supporting documentation is not a requirement. It is something that may help you depending on the circumstances, but it is not a requirement for the issuance of a visa. It depends on the circumstances, the individual, and the particular case.
Great.
Is it okay to travel as a tourist to the United States, then move on to Canada and leave from there?
The short answer is yes. As long as you have a valid tourist visa to enter the United States, you can enter the United States. Another question that we get asked frequently is around the dates of the tourist visas. Yes. People sometimes wonder if there's not a certain length of validity on the visa, when can they enter? But basically the short answer on that is as long as the visa is valid, you can enter the United States to the day that visa is valid. Yes. Until. Yeah. And then if someone chooses to go from the United States to Canada, as long as they have the Canadian visa, then that's fine. They don't have to come back to the United States to come back to the Philippines.
And let's take one more question from Matt.
Hello, Matt. In my last denial, the consul said I was too young. Matt finds this unfair and offensive for the denial.
Well, not being there, not seeing the interview, I can't speak about the particulars of the exact case or what was said or what wasn't said. I recommend that if you think you can put forward a better case for adjudication or issuance, that you can apply again. Again, though, there are no guarantees depending upon your circumstances and your qualifications. I know I've never denied anyone, particularly for being too young.
Right. Age, there's not a minimum age someone has to be in order to qualify for a visa. Again, more than just the age, it depends upon the circumstances around someone's situation.
You are an individual who will be adjudicated as such. You are not a list of boxes to be checked. There is no minimum finances you have to show. There is no minimum age limit. And as such, you're adjudicated on those on the totality of your case.
Jonathan wants to know, can I go to the U.S. and file a divorce to my U.S. citizen wife? She's married to another man in the U.S. What visa do I need? She's married to another man in the United States.
Well, regarding divorces are handled on a state-by-state, county-by-county basis. The different states and different counties have different residency requirements, and it isn't something that the State Department deals with at all. But you're asking what type of visa would you require? Now, if you have to establish residency, I don't believe a B1, B2 would be the appropriate visa class.
Right. If your intention is to go to the United States for a short visit, then a person can apply for a B1, B2. But you're saying, right, Kevin, if in order to file a divorce in the United States in the U.S. court, you have to show that you are living in the United States, then it's going to be difficult to get the B1, B2. So my advice would be look into the state requirements, and if there's a U.S. citizen wife in the United States, she might be able to file a divorce in the United States. But anyway, that's your own personal circumstances.
And it also sounds to me like your wife has 2 marriages, so
right, there were some
maybe
other issues.
maybe that's something you could report to the relevant authorities if you wish to.
There is somebody else emailing or tweeting in. My husband is a U.S. citizen and working in Asia on a yearly contract. Will he be allowed to go with me to the interview? This is if you're coming in for a tourist visa, generally speaking, no. The point that we're making again is that the consular officer wants to interview the applicant, and what's important is the interview with that applicant. And so no, an American citizen spouse is usually not allowed into the interview.
The question is, are you qualified for the visa? Mm-hmm. And you need to establish that on your own merits. So it's something I know, speaking to a number of Americans, they get frustrated they can't accompany their girlfriend or their wife to their visa interview. But it is important to establish the applicant and have the applicant in the interview establish if they're qualified for the visa or not. So I understand how people can be frustrated, but from an interviewing point of view, it's important.
Right, and that might be a good time to say too that minors who are 17 years old and younger, they need to apply with a parent or legal guardian for their interviews. But that's basically the only people that can bring in other people with them. Yeah. Okay, it looks like Eileen is writing in. Hi, I just want to ask if my husband doesn't meet the requirements for finances, what will happen? Is there a possibility I get refused?
Well, hi, Eileen. As we said, for non-immigrant visas, there are no financial requirements. If you want to submit financial documents because you think it will strengthen your case and increase your chances of issuance, you're welcome to bring those documents in. But there are no minimum financial requirements to qualify for a non-immigrant visa. It is slightly different for immigrant visas.
Right.
And Eileen, if you're talking about immigrant visas, I recommend again that you direct your questions to IV Manila Replies at U.S. Embassy. IV Manila Replies at state.gov. Thank you, Eileen. I hope that helps.
Great. And if you are enjoying this, or there's some tidbits that you want to go back and review, you can watch this video later on YouTube at youtube.com/US Embassy Manila, all one word.
And you can like us on Facebook. Facebook.com/US Embassy, /Manila.US Embassy.
And we encourage everyone to follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/US Embassy Manila. And one of my favorite resources, the V-Satisfied Voyager. There are lots and lots of scenarios listed on the blog at blogs.usembassy.gov/Philippines.
And I've heard people think there's a lot of secrecy and a lot of things that happens behind the scenes in visa interviews. This Visa Hour and these other resources, we like to try and be as open as possible. We want to provide you with as much information as possible, so you're as educated and as well informed as possible. So again, continue to check these resources out. Check out Twitter, Facebook, and watch the Visa Hour at every opportunity. We have a question from Mike. If a traveller meets somebody as nice as either of you during a vacation in the US, can the traveller marry him or her in Las Vegas? Well, first of all, let's just say we're both married, right?
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Sorry, Mike. But you can get married in the United States. If you're there in the United States, you can get married.
Right.
And by the way, if you haven't been to Vegas, it's a great place to go. I love Vegas, so
Some good Pacquiao fights there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of great tourist attractions in the United States. And in fact, the President Obama, has just put out a new announcement that he wants to encourage as many tourists and visitors to the United States as possible. And there's actually a new website that highlights all the states in the United States and some of the interesting tourist attractions that are available.
DiscoverAmerica.com. Both Summer and I, we were checking out the site ourselves. We were reading about our own home states, and it was fascinating. So before you get to explore America for real with your tourist visa, we recommend that you discover America through DiscoverAmerica.com.
Wonderful. Ivy. Hello, Ivy again. If I get a tourist visa before I get a new passport with my changed or married name, should I have the visa changed? Good question, Ivy. Basically, if you have a tourist visa that is valid and you have a passport in a different name, what you can do is in your you can bring in your NSO document that shows that you're married and that shows the name change. And or if you want to get a new visa that's issued in your new name so that it matches, you have to apply for a new visa.
And again, if you have any questions, anything we don't answer today regarding non-immigrant visas, you can you can email us at consmanilaniv@state.gov. So I believe after we're finished today, this is going to go on YouTube, right? So if anybody misses it, if you want to tell your friends to watch this, all this valuable information we're sharing with you today, you can watch this video later or tell your friends about it on YouTube at youtube.com/US Embassy Manila.
Something else that I've heard is sometimes a little daunting for people is how short the interviews can be. And sometimes the officer might be perceived as being a little abrupt.
Yes.
In the interview. So I know that's something that people sometimes worry about, but there's a lot of applicants every day, so the interviews sometimes are not lengthy.
Yep.
But the consular officer is reviewing the information in the computer, on the online application, and as well as talking to the applicant that they're interviewing. But sometimes the interviews are not lengthy.
My step-by-step guide to having the best interview possible for an applicant would be, first of all, be honest. Second of all, if you're not comfortable in English, do request an interpreter. Be prepared. Have everything you think may help you in your application, and also be aware of the law, which is the burden of proof is on you as well, the applicant. Okay, so this is what I would this is what I would say with my step-by-step plan to give you the best opportunity to put your best foot forward. So,
that's good. Jesse has a question here. I am a Filipino and planning to study abroad in the San Francisco area. Can I change my B1, B2 visa to a student visa?
If you mean, can you walk into the embassy with a B1, B2 visa and have it a direct swap for an F1 visa, which is a student visa, that isn't possible.
Right.
What you would have to do is come in and apply for an F1 visa. The reason we have to do that is because the process for applying for an F1 visa is different for the process for applying for a B1, B2 visa. The required documents are different. So you can't do that. I do encourage you to go study in San Francisco. Some fantastic schools out in Northern California. Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, all the best.
Okay, looks like Katrina is writing in. Katrina wants to know, how do I get started applying for a visa? All right. The best place to start, I'm going to refer you again, is to ManilaUSEmbassy.gov. And as Kevin says, it's probably a good idea to get some of your, even before you start the application process, get some of your documents in order. Make sure that you have a passport, and you have some plans, that you know where you're going and your intentions. And then go to the manila.usembassy.gov, and they will take you to the online application process to fill out the DS-160.
Well, I believe that's time, Summer. We want to thank everybody for their questions today. Hopefully we've been able to answer as many of the questions as possible. But if there are still questions people have that we haven't addressed, please send your emails for non-immigrant visa questions to consmanilaniv@state.gov.
Wonderful. So we do encourage everyone to enjoy the United States.
Travel to the United States.
Discover America.
We're back and forth from the United States, so you never know. Maybe I'll see you at a 49ers football game.
Or at Disney World with Mickey and Minnie Mouse.
And you can always check out the pandas at San Diego Zoo. So from me, Kevin, and from Summer, this is the end of the Visa Hour, and we'd like to remind you to check out future Visa Hours in the future. So until next time.
Thank you.